warning before we begin. You might not want to watch this alone. Some stories you see don't have an ending. They just drift, silent and waiting to be found. The year is 1861. It's a time of steam and sail, of discovery and darkness. A new merchant vessel is built, christened the Mary Celeste, over 160 years ago. Think about that. The wood used to build her was old even then. But the dockworkers, they told a different story. They claimed the ship groaned at night, a deep, guttural sound, as if the wood itself wasn't just settling, but breathing. Within her first few voyages, a pattern began to emerge. A dark, unsettling pattern. Captains would fall ill with sudden, mysterious sicknesses. Crew members would vanish without a trace in foreign ports. On one trip, a sailor was found cowering below deck, screaming his lungs out. He insisted someone was whispering his name from inside the very walls of the ship. Of course, no one listened. It was just an old ship making old noises, or so they said. Now, let's fast forward to November 1872. A new captain takes command of the Mary Celeste. His name is Benjamin Briggs. He is a respected, experienced mariner. He brings his wife, Sarah, and their young daughter, Sophia. Along with them are 7 handpicked, experienced sailors. This is not a reckless crew. Captain Briggs is a man of logic and order. His logs are known for their precision. His reputation is flawless. He is the last man you'd expect to sail into a legend. Before departing from New York, bound for Italy, Briggs writes a letter to his mother. The Mary Celeste sets sail, carrying a cargo of denatured alcohol, headed for Genoa, Italy. It describes the ship's position and the calm conditions, and then it just stops. Mid-sentence, the ink is smeared, a dark blot on the page, as if the pen was dropped suddenly, violently. No struggle is recorded, no explanation follows, just silence. An entire page, left blank. The story of the Mary Celeste simply ends. On December 5, 1872, nearly a month after she left New York, another ship, the Dei Gratia, spots her. A boarding crew is sent over. As their boots step onto the deck of the Mary Celeste, an eerie quiet greets them. It's the kind of silence that feels heavy, unnatural. They call out. No one responds. The ship is completely deserted. The cabins are empty. In the galley, a meal sits on the table, cold and untouched. In the captain's quarters, children's toys lie scattered on the floor, as if a game was interrupted. The captain's pipe lies on a table beside his open journal, the bowl still smelling faintly of fresh tobacco. It's as if the crew had vanished only moments before, but below deck, they found something worse. Long, deep scratches, lined the wooden walls of the cargo hold. These weren't marks from shifting cargo. They were angled downwards, sharp and desperate, the kind of marks that could only be made by fingernails, the kind of marks made by something, or someone, being dragged. The sailors from the Dei Gratia, who were tasked with sailing the ghost ship to port, refused to stay on board after sunset. They claimed the ship felt occupied. They swore they could hear footsteps on the deck above them when no one was there. The story of the Mary Celeste became a legend overnight, and with legends come whispers and rumors. Old sailors, men with salt in their veins and superstition in their hearts, spoke of a cursed stretch of the ocean, a place on the charts where ships lose time, where voices rise from the water on still nights, where the dead reach out and ask to be heard. They believed the Mary Celeste had sailed right into it. One rumor, passed down in hushed tones in waterfront taverns, says the crew of the Dei Gratia heard crying at night, a child's voice, a little girl, calling for her mother from the empty deck. Another story, a darker one, claims that when they first spotted the ship, they saw a shadow moving against the sails, a tall, thin shadow that moved independently, even when the wind was still. The official investigation offered theories: piracy, mutiny, a seaquake, an explosion from the alcohol cargo, but none of them fit the facts. There was no sign of violence. The crew's personal belongings, including their money, were untouched. The cargo was secure. Every logical explanation led to a dead end. What happened to Captain Briggs, his wife, his daughter, and his crew? Why did they abandon a perfectly good ship? Were they running from something on board? Or were they lured away by something in the water? The sea didn't take the crew of the Mary Celeste. The ship was fine. Something else did. The story doesn't end. It just drifts, waiting for the next person to find it, waiting for the next person to ask, what happened? After the ship was discovered adrift in the Atlantic in 1872, with no crew and everything seemingly in order, you'd think the mystery would end there. But it didn't. The ship was put back into service, but she was never the same. No one wanted her. She changed hands 17 times over the next 13 years. A floating pariah that sailors whispered about in hushed tones. Imagine signing up for a voyage, your bags packed, ready for the open sea, only to find out you've been assigned to the Mary Celeste. Many sailors refused. Those who did join often regretted it almost immediately. The ship developed a reputation, a dark stain that couldn't be washed away. Men would quit mid-journey, getting off at the very first port they reached, forfeiting their pay, just to escape. They spoke of an oppressive feeling, a sense of being watched by unseen eyes. Some became so overwhelmed with dread that they refused to sleep below deck, choosing instead to brave the cold, open air of the topside, rather than spend a night in the ship's claustrophobic bowels. Then there were the more extreme cases. One sailor, a hardened man who had spent his life on the water, suddenly broke down. In the middle of a calm day, he was seen running to the rail, screaming at the top of his lungs, "It's still here! It's still here!" before leaping into the unforgiving ocean. He was never seen again. What could drive a man to such desperation? What presence lingered on that cursed vessel? Whatever it wasn't human, and it hadn't left with the original crew. Soon, the stories began to solidify. It wasn't just a vague feeling of unease anymore. Tangible, undeniable, paranormal activity started being reported by those brave or foolish enough to sail on her. The nights were the worst. Crew members would hear the distinct sound of footsteps pacing the wooden decks above and below them, even when every soul on board was accounted for and supposedly asleep in their bunks. The sound was heavy, deliberate, like someone on patrol. Cabin doors, which had been securely latched for the night, would creak open on their own, revealing nothing but empty, dark passageways. Imagine waking up in your small cabin, the ship gently rocking, only to see your door slowly swinging inward, with no wind, no person, nothing to explain it. The cold dread that would fill your heart is unimaginable. Then came the shadows. Sailors would catch fleeting glimpses of dark figures in their peripheral vision, standing in corners where no one was. A tall, slender shadow standing by the helm, or a hulking shape near the cargo hold. When they'd turn to get a better look, there would be nothing there but empty space. Some claimed to see figures on the deck at night, just standing there, silhouetted against the moon, staring silently out at the dark, churning sea, as if they were waiting for something. If anyone dared to approach these apparitions, they would simply vanish, fading away like smoke in the wind. The Mary Celeste wasn't just a ship anymore. It was a haunted house on the water. The sea, they say, has a long memory. Even after the Mary Celeste was out of commission, her legend only grew. Fishermen, plying their trade in the quiet, lonely waters of the Atlantic, began reporting strange sightings for years afterward. They would speak of a ship, a two-masted brigantine, drifting aimlessly, without any lights. It moved like a phantom, no sound coming from its decks, no smoke from a galley stove, and most unnervingly, no crew to be seen. These sightings always had a few things in common. The phantom ship always appeared in eerily calm water, when the sea was like glass and the air was still, and it always seemed to be watching. The fishermen felt a palpable sense of observation, as if the empty vessel itself had eyes. It never hailed them, never signaled for help. It just drifted, a silent sentinel in the vast emptiness of the ocean. Could this have been the Mary Celeste, continuing her lonely, eternal voyage? The physical evidence left behind was just as unsettling. A compass, one of the few items recovered from the ship after its final voyage, was later examined. The heavy glass casing was found to be shattered, but the break wasn't from an external impact. The glass had broken from the inside, pushed outward with incredible force. A ship's compass is its heart, its guide. For it to fail so catastrophically, from within, suggests a force beyond our understanding. Navigation doesn't just fail without a reason. Something on that ship wanted it to be lost. Among all the theories, pirates, mutiny, sea monsters, there was one that was never officially recorded, one that was whispered in secret and deemed too fantastic to be considered. This was the forbidden theory. It suggested that the Mary Celeste didn't just encounter a storm or a bout of collective madness. It proposed that the ship had crossed a boundary, sailing into something else entirely. Not a place on any map, but a place between worlds. A dimension where the normal laws of physics and time don't apply, where time doesn't move forward, and where the dead don't leave. In this version of the story, the crew wasn't driven off the ship by fear or panic. They were lured away, not by a threat, but by an invitation. A siren's call from this other place, promising something they couldn't resist. Perhaps they saw loved ones on a phantom shore, or heard voices promising an end to all their earthly troubles. They stepped off the Mary Celeste, not in a rush, but calmly, willingly, leaving everything behind to walk into this other realm, from which there was no return. This would explain the lack of struggle, the orderly state of the ship. They weren't taken, they left. The final chapter in the official history of the Mary Celeste is as strange as the rest. By 1885, the ship was infamous. Her owner, Gilman C. Parker, couldn't sell her and couldn't find anyone to insure her. In a desperate act of insurance fraud, he deliberately wrecked her on the Rochelet Reef off the coast of Haiti. He overloaded her with a worthless cargo, claimed it was valuable, and ran her aground, hoping to sink her and collect the insurance money. The ship, however, refused to go down so easily. She remained stuck on the reef, a broken monument to her cursed history. Parker was tried for fraud, and the Mary Celeste was finally, officially, written off. But was that the end? Of course not. Witnesses, local islanders and sailors, swore they saw her again after she was declared destroyed. Drifting just offshore, her sails fully raised as if catching a wind no one else could feel. And, as always, no crew on deck. Local legends on the island persist to this day. They claim the ship still appears on quiet, moonless nights, a ghostly silhouette against the stars. But she only appears to those who are alone, and only to those who stare out at the sea for too long, perhaps lost in their own thoughts. It's as if the ship seeks out a certain kind of soul, the lonely, the searching. So, here's a final warning for you.